Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and today we have a really fun four-game slate. Yesterday we had a really fun four-game slate. Um, I had a bunch of. I think the pricing yesterday was really good. I don't know if it's going to be as good as it was yesterday today, but it was really pretty different. Um, the a lot of the teams that you wanted to play you couldn't stack together easily. Um, so let's go over that first, I guess. I think I went over some of this, but just to reiterate, so Nongshim, or no, that's for today. T1 against LSB. I said it's not worth talking about. T1 should win. Could Live Sandbox theoretically win? Yes, but I wouldn't play that side. So in the first game, Sandbox had a lot of kills and had a chance to kind of overtake the match as time went on, because T1 sort of kind of started falling off, but they ended up holding on and winning that first game off of a really good team fight. Let's see if the scoreboards are up yet. But so the interesting thing from yesterday is that T1 used a different roster. So they had Kana in the top lane, who had a really good Camille game in game one. They used Cuz instead of Elim. Cuz had a good Talia game, and then you had what do you play the second game? An Udyr game, I think. Closer played both games as well. Kana had a rough second game. He played Aurelia against Gnar. My throat's all clogged up for some reason. Yeah, so let's look here. So Summit played Gnar back-to-back games. First game he lost. Second game he lost, but won the matchup really hard. Kroko played Udyr and Pantheon. Udyr is actually very interesting against Pantheon because of how you can stun him and then run behind him, or run behind him to stun him, or like, because Udyr is pretty fast, so you can run past the Pantheon and then stun him, and you're going to do a decent amount of damage. Teddy played pretty well yesterday, and that's the interesting thing about Gumayusi against Teddy. And they kind of spoke to this on the broadcast. Even though Gumayusi is a very mechanically skilled player, Teddy is the kind of player who, and this is all speculation, but may have a steadying presence on the team, is a better shot caller, performs better under pressure. And I was shocked when they started using Gumayusi, but we'll see how that goes as time goes on. But right when they started playing Gumayusi instead of Teddy, they were talking about, other people were saying, like, I wonder if Teddy's going to get traded or sold, because it's kind of insane to have him on your bench, which I agree with. So Teddy had a really good match. It's against Sandbox, and Sandbox is probably better than their record, but they're not that much better than their record. Keria had a very interesting series. In the Leona game, Keria had missed a lot of E's and a couple of ultimates. But in the second match, after Sandbox picked Jhin and Tahm Kench, Keria played Neeko, which is not a typical support pick. And the reason why that happens, and it shows either Keria is very intelligent or the T1 coaching staff is very intelligent, it shows that even though metas change and certain champions are more and less popular, there are always counter picks that good players will have to something that's popular at one point in time. So Tahm Kench was extremely popular a while back, and I think that Neeko makes a lot of sense as a way to punish Tahm Kench, because you have snares, you have Pop Blossom, and you can do a lot of poke damage in lane, where, like, even if Tahm Kench is able to save the AD carry or the mid laner or whoever, then Tahm Kench will most likely die because of the amount of lockdown. And Teddy and Keria played really well together, and that's going to be very important in the future, because I could see that being a reason why they continue to play with Teddy. But we'll see what happens in their next match. It's unclear at this point. Like, they have a bunch of good players. They probably have 8 different players that would start on a lot of teams in the LCK. So that's a good thing for T1. It's a good problem to have. The last thing was, if you didn't watch that match, you should check out a highlight in the first game where T1 looked like they were being collapsed on with 5 people from the enemy team. T1 responded, and it was probably like a 30 second to 1 minute fight, and T1 played that team fight extremely well. It's something that was like incredible, not incredible, like the best thing I've ever seen, but it was an incredible thing to watch because a lot of teams wouldn't be able to pull that off, and that type of coordination is really impressive. And then KT Rolster against DRX. So this, going into yesterday, this is what I said. I said DRX against KT. I'm a little surprised KT is the slight favorite, but it is in line with public sentiment going into the season. They've had the tougher schedule so far, so this will be potentially a spot where we have DRX, who has looked better because they're winning, versus KT, who has high expectations and a tough schedule. Doran came into the season as the more highly thought of player, but I wouldn't be shocked if Kingen ended the season as their equal or same tier. Pyosik had a better year than both KT junglers last year, and I like their long-term upside. Yukal was a highly thought-of player, and Solka has played well. Most people who pick a side in this match instead of playing both sides will need to figure out what they think about the mid matchup specifically, because the difference in opinion here is potentially the largest. I think this means DRX is the better side in the hopes that the play we've seen from them is indicative of high upside, which would absolve DRX partially of their insane offseason, which I was highly critical of. KT coming off a win against T1 also makes the line seem weird. If anyone has a take on it, I'd like to hear it, which is basically just me asking everybody in the Discord, what do you all think? Let me know. I had one or two lineups with KT, and I had probably 3 or 4 lineups with DRX, and I had DRX in a 333 lineup that did not cash. So what I was saying about yesterday is the roster construction. So I had like BLG and Sunning lineups where I had a couple of those players, and then I would swap out like the support slot and team slot for T1, or I'd have to throw in like 1 or 2 players from DRX, like Solka and Pyosik. And that's something I'll probably do in the future as well. I didn't watch the DRX series. I'm just seeing this now for the first time that they tried playing Nocturne mid. I don't know how the draft went. I don't really care how the draft went. I'm not gonna go through and watch it right now. But it is interesting to watch. So after this first game, maybe ban the Hecarim. The Hecarim against Lilia matchup it's the kind of thing that I've talked about in the past where the Hecarim, even if you think that the AP side is better, meaning the AP side of the matchup is better, Hecarim always has the chance to snowball out of control against AP junglers. So that's that. And then BLG against LGD, I said I'm long on BLG, so I will be picking them in almost every spot. I played them yesterday. They had a really low kill score game 1, and Angel had like 11 kills in game 2, or in game 1. Yeah, so I think they had 14 kills in game 1. Angel had like 11, and nobody on the team really scored that well. And then in game 2, Angel went 0-0-12 as Kassadin, which is like insane. Like, the fact that Kassadin won a game and didn't get a kill is crazy. So there's that. Let's see. What is going on tonight? So first up, we have Nongshim and Afrika Freaks. I already have my write-ups in Discord, but for this video, I'm just going to go through the sheet and the relative scoring, and then also like the lane by lane. I can do that pretty quick. So Rich and Keen. Rich is talked about more. I don't think that Rich is that much better than Keen. Peanut, I like Peanut a lot more than I like Dread. Bay and Fly, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. Deokdom and Kellen against Bang and Lehens. I think Bang and Lehens are probably better. They're certainly more experienced, and their team is more likely to play around them. So that's something to take into consideration. I feel like Nongshim hasn't had a lot of kills so far this season. I don't know how playing against Afrika Freaks changes that. I'm not sure it does. LNG coming off their victory over BLG against E-Star. Mikuya or Ale against ZS. Let me just make sure these are right. I think it might even be a different... the lineups came out before, but I didn't really take a look. It's Makuya. Okay. So it's ZS, Hacker, Irma, Rat, Xiaoxi against Makuya, Tarzan, Icon, Light, and Elwandi. So yeah, I think that ZS has higher upside. That's a player that I'm interested in long term. Tarzan against Hacker. Tarzan's the better player. Icon against Irma. Icon is the more experienced player and is a very good, maybe not a very good mid laner, but is a good mid laner, especially considering how much they've played in the LPL. Light and Elwandi against Rat and Xiaoxi. The bot lane is where I could see E-Star potentially getting a win. So between the strength in top lane and bot lane, it's possible for E-Star to win, in my opinion. I don't think I'm playing E-Star tonight, unless I end up making 20 lineups, which I don't think I'm going to tonight. But that is an upset that I'll probably make one lineup with E-Star tonight because they are a big dog. So like maybe one with them as a primary stack, one with them as an underdog. It's another potential double dog night because the dogs, almost all the dogs are alive. I think E-Star is the least likely to win, but I still think they have realistic chances, like over 30%, because of the differences that I'm talking about. Okay, let's go to Damwon and Hanwha Life. So Khan against Morgan. Khan's the better player. I think most people will say that Khan is much better than Morgan. I don't think that's the case, but they're both pretty good. Canyon against Arthur. Arthur just went off the other day. Against Genji. So that's interesting to me. Not much else to say about that. Showmaker against Chovy, both very good. Ghost and Beryl against Deft and Vista, both very good. So I know that this is the kind of spot where any type of game could happen, and any type of game could happen, and I wouldn't be very surprised. Like if this was a macro heavy 12 kills to 6 kind of match, or like every game in the match, I really wouldn't be that surprised because I think that Hanwha Life will probably not be extremely aggressive, and it makes sense because Deft and Vista, like if this match happened the beginning of last season with these rosters, people would probably say Deft and Vista are better than Ghost and Beryl, mostly because of Deft. But Deft had a down year, and Vista isn't a very highly thought of player because of how bad Hanwha Life was last year. But now Vista's playing pretty well. I watched him play Thresh the other day, and that was a pretty solid performance. So I think that there is a possibility that Hanwha Life can win through the bot lane. The one thing about Hanwha Life that I don't... Well, actually, it's not really about Hanwha Life. The thing about Damwon Gaming is they're just really good at League of Legends. And if they, like, for example, if Hanwha Life doesn't respect the Twisted Fate pick, and Showmaker can just continuously pressure side waves by, like, ulting to the side lanes, that could be a big problem for a team like Hanwha Life. Because if Showmaker has mid priority and Canyon is able to get, like, a good matchup in the jungle, then Arthur, who has played pretty well so far this year, could kind of get blown out of the water because potentially they're just not as good as Canyon, which I don't know if that's the case. I really haven't seen enough of Arthur to have like a real solid opinion of them, but that would be one thing I'm afraid of. Let's go. Okay. And then the last game, World Elite against RNG. RNG is definitely alive. I think that Xiaohu is probably better than Breathe as a talent, just in general. Breathe has had a good season so far, but they've also been winning a ton. I think that Xiaohu against Breathe will be a very interesting matchup, and will probably determine the match. In the jungle, Beishang against Wei. They're both good players. I don't know who people think is better. I would assume most people think Beishang is better. And I think Beishang is better too. But Wei has played well, and it's a pretty good meta for Wei. Shanks against Cryan. I think most people probably say that Cryan is better. And then Zhao Meng and Missing against Gala and Ming. I think that they're both pretty good. But World Elite has been more consistent in the bot lane for sure. And they have a lot more experience as a duo, which there's some value there. It's not like the determining factor between the two sides, but it's a lot easier to click Zhao Meng Missing and feel good about it, which is not necessarily important from like an outcome perspective, but it is something that will impact how players build lineups. So let's take a look at the pricing. So for the team slot, Damwon is a big favorite over Hanwha Life. I think Hanwha Life has a good chance to win. So the problem is I don't think that Hanwha Life is going to 2-0, which makes me not want to play their team slot unless you think they win in a close 2-1 series and need the salary savings. So that's one good reason to potentially use Hanwha Life as a team slot. I would rather use Hanwha Life than E-Star. Yeah. So I think the only way that you're using a Freak of Freaks or Hanwha Life is as one-offs. It's going to be tough to... Is Nongshim the kind of team that dies a lot in their losses? I know that sometimes that happens with Peanut teams, but I don't have any stats to back that up. RNG and Team World Elite are also going to be tough teams to use in the team slot because the match seems relatively close. LNG against E-Star. I guess that might just be a problem that I'm having tonight. I don't know if everyone else feels the same way, but I don't think I want to play Damwon Gaming Team. LNG seems pretty safe. World Elite doesn't seem safe. Nongshim doesn't seem safe. RNG doesn't seem safe. And the rest of them obviously don't seem safe. So, it's probably just a spot where you want to do like a normal 4-3 stack or 3-4 stack, and just try to find two teams that you think will win and combine them together the best that you can. The fact that there's so many underdogs that have realistic chances of winning, maybe that has people overlook Damwon Gaming Team or LNG Team. LNG is probably going to get more ownership than I'm thinking. They're players, which means that the team slot will probably be a little bit lower. So maybe that's a good spot. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. In the top lane, the top laners are about this. They're basically the same as the team slot in terms of the most expensive to the least expensive. Khan at 6,400. Xiaohu at 5,600 is very interesting to me. Even if they lose the series 2-1, I think that Xiaohu has a chance to put in like 1.5 good performances, because in top lane, if you win the matchup and you're like stuck side laning against somebody else, like what we saw in the sandbox match yesterday against T1, Summit had a really good game too and had a good kill score. So that's potentially a spot to look at to differentiate your lineups. In the jungle, we have Canyon and Damwon still are the most expensive. Then we go down to Beishang. So Beishang against RNG, I don't know. I think that I guess it doesn't really matter. Beishang is the kind of player where I don't care if they lose one of their games, because as a carry jungler, they can still put up a decent score in a loss. So that really doesn't bother me. And that's really true for Canyon, Tarzan, Beishang, Peanut, Wei, and Arthur. I don't feel as good about Dread. I don't feel as good about Hacker. Peanut in their wins hasn't been getting a lot either, so he's probably my 5th or 6th favorite jungler tonight, and that says a lot because I love Peanut as a player in general, and I always try to play them. Let's go to mid lane. So Icon is the most expensive mid laner. I think that is very surprising to me. Icon doesn't have as many gigantic DraftKings performances as you would think. let's see. Yeah. Their best performance of the year was against Invictus Gaming. They scored 103 points. In another 2-1 win, they only had 72 points, which is about what you expect. Like in a 2-1 win, you're probably somewhere between 72 to 85, unless you have one gigantic kill score game, which happens. Oh, I need some water. Okay, so in the mid lane, yeah, so Shanks is second. Showmaker's third. So Showmaker is obviously a good option tonight. You're going to play Showmaker probably regardless of what the salary is, just as a primary stack to incorporate him in your primary stack. I don't know if I'm really going to play that much Shanks. This might result in lineups where you have Jalmung captain, skip Shanks, and get another team's mid and AD carry into your lineup, like Showmaker and Ghost. I don't know if that's possible or not. It'll probably be kind of close. We can take a look at that afterwards, maybe. Bay Cryan is in a good spot, I think. I could see RNG winning this match outright. Chovy is 6,800, even though they're the smallest. Well, they're not the smallest. Chovy is 6,800, even though their team slot is last. So even though they're a big underdog. In the bot lane, we have Jalmung as the most expensive AD carry, which is kind of expected. Every time that World Elite is on the slate, Jalmung gets a ton of ownership. I'm surprised that Deokdam is so high. I'm kind of surprised that Light is so high. This is more about... Or actually, I'm surprised that Light isn't higher, considering LNG is probably the easiest favorite to convince yourself of. Ghost being this low is pretty interesting. It means that Ghost lineups... There'll probably be some good Ghost lineups. Yeah, like right here we're seeing... That one for sure. That one for sure. So that'd be Damwon Gaming plus LNG, which means that Damwon has to outperform RNG, Team World Elite, LNG. Doesn't seem likely. I think that might actually keep people away from Damwon Gaming, but I know that a lot of people in the Discord are very excited about Damwon winning somebody a slate pretty soon. Maybe Showmaker decides to flex on a Hanwha Life and just run up the score to send a message. Bang at this price is interesting, but again, it's not the price as much as the chance of the underdog stack hitting. Deft is definitely in play. No pun intended. Elwandi is the most expensive support. So this makes a lot of sense to me because as a secondary stack, it'll be pretty easy to get like LNG team slot, Elwandi, and then Light or Icon. Even Tarzan. But now you're really kind of forced to need a 2-0. So maybe that's a good spot where you do like LNG team slot, Mikuya top lane, Elwandi bot or as a support, and then you hope for a 2-0, and then you fit in you would fit in 4 players from one team, and then get a one-off 1, 2, 3, 4. No, you'd get 4 players from another team, but I guess that would make you have a jungle captain. So maybe like a Beishang captain team, where you still get access to Shanks and Jalmung, but you get the 2-0 upside from the top lane support and team slot. Seems like a good lineup to me. I could see myself doing something like that. I think I'll probably end up playing a double dog tonight, though. At least a couple. But that's basically it. That's been 25 minutes. I've got to make another video later. I'm going to save my voice and play some League. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.